Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer action. We're paused here today because I wanted to talk a little bit more about sort of a meta concept. In the most recent update, the Shadow and Blade, the Creative Assembly changed some of the balancing on melee attack / defense and weapon strength buffs. So taking a look at our model Karl here. Mr. Karl Franz, or Emperor Karl Franz, if you will, recently had his abilities changed. So Reichland Runefang, a 24 melee attack, I believe is actually the same as before. Most melee attack buffs have been reduced. This might have been 26 actually before. I think it was 26, 27 for the standard attack defense buff, so slightly lowered there. But if we look at Galmiraz, it's up to 50% armor piercing damage, right? I believe it was something like 40 or similar below. If you look at my Saurus Old Blood for my Lizardmen army, this is Falcon's Karl Franz. You can see here this again plays out in Horn of Kygor down to 24 melee attack, 24 melee defense as well for stand your ground, right? So keeping that in mind, we collectively wanted to test out some builds utilizing the weapon strength buffs to see how much of a difference it actually makes. So going as full ham as we can, we've got a Grey Wizard here, and most of these replays, in fact, all these replays are going to be revolving around this spell right here, Occam's MINDRAZOR. 50% weapon damage, 50% AP damage, and stacking that on top of abilities like Galmiraz, right? So the reason I'm paused is because of this Vanguard action. We're going to get underway pretty quick here as I've got some Chameleon Skinks, Pistoliers, 4 Falcon. He's got Veteran State Troop Spearmen, Demigryph Knights, and then a healer in addition to Gandalf. As for myself, I've got some Cold One Spear Riders supporting that Saurus Old Blood. We've got plenty of Red Crest, Skink Bro, Heaven's Skink, and some Razordons as well. Right off the bat, I'm going to get kind of drawn into an engagement here, and I know Falcon's coming with that big beat stick. I do have the Amulet of Itzel to try and resist some of that damage, but we come in here, I get a decent enough countercharge on some of these Demigryph Knights, pop that Horn of Kygor here, so you can see we're doing some really nice damage, but here comes the moment we've all been waiting for. Saurus Old Blood pops all of his stuff, Amulet of Itzel is active, but Karl Franz up to 908 total weapon strength, punching much heavier than a Dread Saurian even, but you can see that the Amulet of Itzel just now wearing off, so I'm now vulnerable to those massive attacks here from Karl, and it won't take many to actually take down this Old Blood. Normally I would go into cinematic mode at this point, but I want you guys to see these health bars and see when those hits go down on this guy, what massive chunks they are, right? With that huge amount of weapon strength, only like 2 or 3 hits and my leadership is gone. And just kind of shows the power there. While my Cold One Spear Riders traded very well initially with the Demigryph Knights, Falcon did a great job pulling them back through the support here. He's got some supporting spears, while my Skinks kind of got eaten up there that were supporting. My Red Crest, who I had intended to support the cavalry engagement with, ended up being, kind of deployed in other areas. And also, these Razordons, they had been shooting the Demigryph Knights misclicked rather than on Karl, which may have made a little bit of a difference there. You can see the Old Blood did quite a bit of damage to Karl, as did the Razordons when I actually did connect on, hits on him. Likewise, Demigryph Knights have taken quite a bit of damage as well, but with that healer still, alive, that Jade Wizard able to throw out those Earthbloods, keep that little pack sustained, and they are now chasing down my Razordons. Running into a big problem here. Saurus Old Blood thankfully does come back from route as Karl Franz gets distracted by the Heaven's Skink there, which is great for me. Managed to catch these Demigryph Knights with my Cohort of Sotek, which again, nice pick. They're going to be able to get away reasonably effectively, but we should be able to stay right on target. But once again, Saurus Old Blood gets isolated, and that's going to be the end for him. You could also take Enfeebling Foe, of course, on the Shadowcaster potentially here, but Falcon felt, I don't think that he had the spend for it. I'm going to try and use my Skink's magic to blow up some of these Demigryph Knights here. Looks like Falcon mostly dodging that, but yeah, Karl, obviously that huge power spike does take a lot of timing to get going, so if I had tried to run away with the Saurus Old Blood during that time rather than just tank the damage of Amulet of Itzel, maybe things turn out a little bit differently, but as it is, even though the balance of power, pretty clearly in Falcon's favor, he's absolutely going to take this one at this point. The battle was fast and brutal, but it was close enough. If you look, like, I mean, I've still got some tattered remnants left, and Felcon's forces here, the Demigryph Knights and Karl, all very low as well. So even though things happened, you know, extremely quickly, that's partly due to the map, partly due to that Vanguard position there. But I do think that this could have potentially gone a little bit of a different way. Now, talking about, this is kind of what myself and Felcon were talking about. Having the healing, of course, is nice. You could alternately take somebody like Felix in this spot to act as a healer. You know, you kind of run back with Karl. Not as efficient, or as not as flexible, I should say, as the Jade Wizard. And the Grey Wizard, yeah, it looks like he does actually have Enfeebling Foe here, which is an excellent choice to have, you know, just to make sure your opponent's melee defense is down, and likewise, if their melee attack is down, Franz is less likely to take counterpunches, right? So, the Wombo combo worked out fantastically for Felcon this time, so let's jump into a few more battles here. Felcon and I were in chat together during this, so just kind of discussing as he's wrapping up here. We'll get in and get some cinematic shots since we haven't really so far this replay. Mostly been paying attention to the stats and stuff, which is why you guys come here, right? But these Demigryph Knights chasing the hapless lizards away. And, yeah. Franz still hanging on with about 600 HP left. That Jade Wizard there, yeah, pretty much just had the cohort of Sotek left, so I'm going to go ahead and admit defeat. And although Karl did take a ton of damage there, I mean, it took him, what, like 3 hits? 3 solid hits? 2 or 3 even to rout that Saurus Allblood. So, I mean, the damage potential is legit. Absolutely legit. And in a build like this, where you kind of are very much kind of planning and focused around it, can be very effective. Like I said, there's a little bit of variability here. Maybe you change out this trait. Jade Wizard for, what's it called? Let's just go straight into the Empire roster, because I want to talk a little bit about them specifically. There are a few different things you can do here that I want to try, but I'm curious if any of you guys get a chance to try it first. Feel free to send me the replay, but the General of the Empire, not as powerful as Karl, obviously, but he is much cheaper, about 500 points cheaper when he's kitted out in a similar manner. But the Rune Fang, the regular Rune Fang, gives a similar attack buff profile. I mean, granted, Karl has more weapon strength baseline, right? But Galmraz does not give the regular weapon damage, only the armor-piercing weapon damage. So you should be coming out about the same in terms of total weapon damage, obviously without the anti-large, and with lower, you know, kind of stats in general. But obviously 500 points cheaper. And he does come with this Charmed Shield, which is a nice little self-defense buff, certainly. And again, because he's not quite as expensive, maybe you don't have to allocate as much healing to him. But this Occam's Mindrazor there, you can do that. Boris, you won't get quite as high with Boris, but you can still come in and combo it with Deadly Onslaught. The charge bonus, you want to try and take advantage of that as much as you can. But again, not quite as high, but still that 25% plus the 50% will give you pretty good value, and that way you don't have to allocate any healing whatsoever. So, of course, Boris has his own. So, let's go ahead and move on to the next replay without too much more rambling from me. Another possible combination is with the High Elves. Yeah, the High Elves do have Lore of Shadows, and they do have a Prince on a Star Dragon with a few items here. Deadly Onslaught we've seen before, plus Blade of Bel Caradris, again, gives them that 50% total armor-piercing weapon damage buff, being on a Star Dragon with extremely high weapon strength. To begin with, there's some pretty good possibility here. So we're up against some Dark Elves. We've got Illyrian Reaver Archers here, regular Reavers, and I did actually bring some Dragon Princes this time. How about that? A Life Mage for healing, a Shadow Mage for Occam's Mindrazor and Enfeebling Foe. And, yeah, sort of taking a page out of Felcon's book here with the double caster, but this time I've got them in an anti-infantry role on chariots, which obviously does make them quite a bit more expensive, but gives me kind of some dual utility there. Dark Elves here, got some Cold One Knights, Dark Riders with shields, we've got a single Bolt Thrower with 2 Bloodrack Medusas, a Malice Darkblade leading the way. They've also got Lore of Shadows here, so Malice, I guess, can do this. There's a few different options for the Dark Elves. We'll talk more about them in a moment. They can also do this. Looks like Reptile King here, who I'm playing, didn't actually bring Occam's MINDRAZOR, but you can combo it with Malice innate ability here, of course. The blood price will cause a bit of damage to himself, but you do get the damage resistance and a ton of damage spike, 60% instead of the 50% that we've seen on many of these other characters. But as it stands right now, the cavalry engagement going to get underway. We managed to catch these Dark Riders here in a charge bonus, and again, both Illyrian Reavers and Dark Riders are shock cavalry, right? I'm going to keep saying that until people realize, but we're going to get a nice engagement here. Enfeebling Foe gets popped on them, but here comes the big combo. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air up on his dragon, gets all the weapon strength up to 1124 weapon strength, just KOs that Blood Rack Medusa. Probably a little bit of overkill to use this on a monster this cheap, but yeah, I'm not really too worried about it. We've got a little bit of uptime left here. Was that actually worth it at the end of the day? You know, hard to say, but hey, at least we got like a hit or two in, right? Meanwhile, the rest of the battle here, cavalry contesting this flank decently well. These Cold War Knights are going to be a bit of an issue for me. I don't have a ton of units that are great for dealing with them, other than the Star Dragon just straight up face stomping them, right? But the Dragon Princes actually come up, sweep around, get a good charge with their 80 charge bonus. They will wreck this Medusa, you know, kind of in a cycle charge when they can get a good surround like this. And yeah, she's not long for this world, which is great. Still got plenty of Illyrian Reavers, both bow and melee, you know, kind of contesting this side here. We're going to set a nice edge with these Spearmen. My Mage Chariots are also kind of supporting. Haven't been using them super aggressively, but at the very least they're sitting here providing some anti-infantry splash attacks. But the Star Dragon is going to be taking some damage from these Dark Riders and various other units here. We'll see. Terror should be kicking in, though, and I do have the Earthblood to keep him healed. Looks like a nice Pit of Shades there. Does manage to catch quite a bit of my Spearmen. Unfortunately, Pit of Shades, though, in my opinion, not really worth it right now. The damage scaling is pretty poor. But, so, you know, that's just how it goes there. Yeah, the two mages doing okay. Dragon Princess being very healthy is also going to be key into this late game as well. Malice, though, is potentially still a problem, so let's see what we can do here. I believe I probably have another timing push just about. He's going to throw Blood Price right there, and yep, here comes another Occam's MINDRAZOR. We've got Standing Ground. I don't believe Blade of Belcaradris is actually off of cooldown right now, but let's see. We're up to 871 at the very least from the MINDRAZOR. So we're going to come in here, and it's a little bit hard to see where Malice is at because he's actually on foot, but needless to say, his health is getting deleted right now, and yeah. You better pop that Sarkhan for him, like, right now, or else he gets terrified and can't pop it. So that's one way of dealing with Sarkhan, is just, you know, two-shotting Malice before he can use the ability. Oh, man, with that Deadly Onslaught up to 834 there with the Blade of Belcaradris, kind of being used one after the other rather than all at once, but still. The potential to go all at once is just a little bit ridiculous. There are a few different factions who can do this, as I've mentioned, so we're going to be looking at a few more replays here. But I figured you guys would enjoy this one, and for those of you keeping track, this is also... Oh man, brutal hit there. This is also an all-vanilla build, at least my build is. Star Dragon, you know, these Chariot Mages, all the stuff I have here is non-DLC, so for those of you guys keeping track of that, there's another idea for you. And yeah, without Malice, without his big damage spike, you know, it would have been really nice to have in this late game, obviously, to finish off a lot of these cavalry units, especially as they try and blob up the Dragon Princes in particular. That big Soul Stealer attack he has is really, really good against cav blobs, but it's going to be victory for the Dragon Prince, the Fresh Prince of Bel up in the air. Belcaradris, right, up in the air. Anyway, I'll stop. Well played, Reptile King there, and yeah, worked out decently well for me. Not really too much to talk about. The Dragon Prince is acting in a countercharge role, did excellent there. Illyrian Reavers and Spearmen just kind of contesting the main battle as they are meant to. For Reptile King, did a good job kind of just picking my forces apart for the most part. The Bolt Thrower is definitely a great pick, and I wasn't able to get on top of it very effectively. He did a really nice job kind of spreading out and defending it. Obviously, Malice getting deleted there was a bit rough, and yeah. Didn't quite have time to use that Sarkhan summon, which, you know, is kind of the point, right? So that ended up being a little bit tough at the end of the day, but thankfully for me, I mean, a build like this that's this wide could be pretty good if the hiles go very narrow, but thankfully for me, I had enough to kind of get back here and contest these Medusas, keep them from being hugely effective, which ultimately I think was one of the big keys for me. So well played there. Let's go ahead and get to the next replay without too much more talking. Next up, we've got Nolosi. Yes, the generic melee Dreadlord herself on her dragon. She's an option for this. You can also do this with the Dark Elves, with the Beastmaster, using another dragon. Falcon's got 2 dragons here under the banner of Haggrave. He's also got a Death Hag on her cart. Relatively straightforward build, and it's up against the Vampire Counts. Myself kind of thinking about counterplay. We'll go into that in just a second. We've got Slaanesha's Harvesters, Dark Riders with repeater crossbows, and yeah, pretty much the rest. For me, thinking about kind of counterplay here, with the weapon strength buffs, you still have to roll to get a hit, right? So my kind of thinking is if I can debuff Falcon's melee attack on his power unit enough that it can't get the hits with its weapon strength, then he'll essentially be wasting all of those buffs, right? So to that effect, I've got the Lamian Vampire Lord here. She's got some excellent melee attack debuffs. AoE Seduction gives a speed and melee attack debuff activatable for 41 seconds, which is a very long time. Likewise, she herself also has some speed and damage resistance with lightning reflexes. She's got a mix of shadow and vampires, plus a very specific counter to her, or a very specific counter that she has, rather. Occam's MINDRAZOR does magic damage, so this Scepter of Stability can give you a big resistance spike to that. She's also got Pendulum, Enfeebling Foe, again, another melee attack buff to layer on top of the Seduction Aura. And then Raise Dead, Invocation of Nehek, of course, got the Hunger being a dragon, Hunger being a vampire, Breath being a dragon, all that jazz. We've also got a White King on foot, Corpse Cart, a Vampirus up in the air. She doesn't have any spells, just here to act as another air combatant, and a Terror Goose with 2 anti-infantry Black Knights. So we'll see how this goes. Falcon's going to be utilizing his repeater crossbows well there, trying to go after my Unholy Lodestone. I'm going to pull it back there and then kind of re-advance, make sure I'm using these zombies to screen as much as possible. But yeah, again, kind of the thinking here is if we can just get Nolosi to whiff on all of her attack animations, then, again, all of that big power spike of that ability spike will be lost potentially. So we'll see how it ends up working out here. I'm getting a little bit over-aggressive with my Vampirus Lord of Shadows here, just trying to catch some of these missile cavalry. Definitely regretting not having, what are they, the Chill Guys? Very good for catching skirmish cav. I would pretty much recommend them in most matchups right now, but you can see we're going to try and push the missile cav away here and kind of use positional isolation to get the Dreadlord away. Enfeebling Foe been popped there, so minus 35. I'm a little bit late, though, coming in with that Seduction Aura, and you can see that Vampirus gets just destroyed by Nolosi's face. Nolosi up to 1170 once again on that weapon strength total, but now look at her with only 6 melee attack. Between all of those different abilities there, and I believe Falcon actually, yeah, put Word of Pain on one of my combatants. I'm not sure. Yes, I believe it's the. Yeah, I can't see exactly who it is in all of this scrum, but anyway, Nolosi. I mean, besides just eating that Vampirus alive, she really hasn't done a whole lot of damage. Likewise, the other Black Dragon with that Seduction Aura hasn't been getting hits as well, and that the Goose. The Mad Terror Goose has been doing quite nice. A beautiful Penumbral Pendulum just rips apart a bunch of those silly pink Dark Elves, and so far I'm feeling pretty good about things. If we can keep Nolosi kind of zoned away from her army, but I make a classic kind of pursuit mistake here and over pursue, not keeping my angles of pursuit, in mind, and just kind of get outmaneuvered here by Falcon. So he's probably going to be able to get to his support here of these missile units, which is what he needs to do. Really beautiful bit of shades here. Going to be doing quite a bit of damage to the Sternsman, which is kind of my one high-value infantry unit. Thankfully, the Corpse Cart is in a position here. You can see also how I'm kind of trying to fight near the Corpse Cart with these units so that I get that melee attack, defense, and healing. A nice direct down breath attack on the... Oh man, they were just like, oh, just make it rain on us. Okay, I won't go there. But anyway, that could go down potentially demonetized path very quickly. But anyway, I'm going to take another engagement here. Another Occam's MINDRAZOR on Nolosi, and this is a big mistake by me. I'm actually taking a ton of crossbow fire here, a couple of big noms by Nolosi, and this could potentially cost me the game. Up until now, I'm doing a good job kind of countering the strategy here, but I try and screen out with the goose, get into a traffic jam with myself, which is just, you know, kind of how it goes sometimes, and that allows Nolosi to get the killing blow on, yeah, the Lamian. So who's the better generic female Dragon Lord? Right now, Nolosi, let's say. But I actually think that the Lamian is a very good counter to this type of play specifically. I actually think the Lamian's kind of just an underrated Bloodline Lord in general. I mean, you see the Blood Dragon pretty much always, right? And speaking of which, you can do this with the Blood Dragon also. We'll talk about that in just a minute after this replay is finished. But, I mean, at this point, with the Lamian going down, not a ton I can do besides just try and make it look convincing here with these Black Knights. How about that Hag Grave color scheme, man? One thing about an army painter is, you know, if we get an army painter, there's going to be like all the different factions with this kind of color scheme, right? Like Warriors of Chaos, I mean, it's Slanesh, right, obviously, but like the Empire, you'll see pink Lizardmen, you'll see, you know, pink Vampires even, pink Vampire Coast, probably. Which, you know, maybe that's your thing. If that's your thing, there's nothing wrong with that. But hey, the fabulous pink Dark Elves under Nolosi's banner. Pretty pink Nolosi. She is going to lead her elves to victory here. And another great showcasing of that Occam's MINDRAZOR play. Like I said, though, it also showcases a bit of potential counterplay, which is to nerf your opponent's melee attack so they can't get the hits, or, like I said, run away in a previous replay. If you can, just run away. And that also is a valid option. One more Occam's MINDRAZOR plus the Hydra Blade there. That's the specific buff for Nolosi that makes this possible with her. And let's watch her delete the White King here. I'm going to keep the health bars up. Maybe she'll get a hit, maybe she won't. Oh, there's a good hit. At least one good hit. That's all we wanted to see, right? And the finishing blow. Oh, poor White King. Yeah. Very fun stuff. Well played once again to Falcon. And two factions that can do this, and a little bit of counterplay to boot. So, as I mentioned before, we're not going to go too deep into the replay. The post-analysis on this one it's pretty straightforward as to what happened in the battle, but talking about these two factions specifically, we go over here and have a look at the Dark Elves and the Vampire Counts. So, as I mentioned, Nolosi and the Dreadlord both able to do this. The Dreadlord with his Lash and Nolosi with her Hydra Blade. As for efficiency, I mean, the Beastmaster, he can give it to himself on the Manticore, which doesn't necessarily give you massive AP weapon damage. He also has Tormentor Swords, so in a competitive sense, I would say he's better than Nolosi. This Whiplash, likewise, also has some other secondary effects. 21 seconds duration versus the Hydra Blades, 38 seconds. So it does have a bit shorter of a duration, but I believe it also has a shorter cooldown as well. Let's see, 90 cooldown there. And 120, yeah, so shorter cooldown, you get a little bit more uptime probably in total. Hard to say, but again, he can't, I mean, it's not as efficient for him to use it on himself, rather. You would need that secondary dragon or Hydra or a Charybdis or whatever. I don't know if you would actually use a Charybdis, but theoretically, I mean, 500 weapon strength go a long way. But the Black Dragon, of course, with 520 is going to give you the best value there. As for the Vampire Counts, as I mentioned, obviously they have Lore of Shadows. Blood Dragon coming in with his massive, you know, heart piercing, plus Helm of Discord, plus Sword of Anti-Heroes as well. With that Occam's MINDRAZOR, granted, it's a lot of spend to do this, and you are taking up one of your hero slots, which could be better spent on a Banshee, White King, or Necromancer. But, you know, something you can do. It is certainly possible to do this as well with the Vampire Counts, so I would be remiss without mentioning that. As for other factions which can do this, we've got one more replay to get to with Warriors of Chaos, who of course can pull this off as well. Norska can to a degree, although they don't have as good of weapon strength buffs on their lords. so I don't have as many good combo possibilities. You really just have, Occam's MINDRAZOR by itself, which granted on something like a Mammoth can be absolutely nasty. But in terms of other Lord buffs, like Throg doesn't have any armor-piercing weapon strength buffs. Wulfric has his sword, which is a non-armor-piercing weapon strength buff of 90%. So if Wulfric is on a horse, and this is actually something you can do. You can basically turn Wulfric into a Mammoth while he's on horseback if you use the proper combination of abilities. It does take a little bit of kind of setup here, but because Hunter of Champions has an armor component, you don't necessarily need Enfeebling Foe, right, if you're fighting a Lord. So, I mean, if you're fighting a monster, you'll still want it. But you can do this Occam's MINDRAZOR. If he's on a horse, he has mostly non-armor-piercing weapon strength, right? So you're going to get a ton of value from that Sword of Torgald. You can still stack that on top of the Occam's MINDRAZOR, as again, it does give the non-armor-piercing damage. And Withering as well if you want additional armor sundering, if you really need that. And, of course, Enfeebling Foe stacked with Hunter of Champions. I mean, he'll be able to punch very, very well upward, even against armored targets with those kind of stacking debuffs together, and he's quite a bit cheaper than on a Mammoth, of course. I mean, you don't have the mass or terror or HP of the Mammoth, so there's definitely some give and take there. But yeah, I don't have a replay to show you of this one, but we do have a replay of Chaos, so let's get to that. Okay, so maybe I lied a little bit. Maybe it is Norska and Warriors of Chaos together. And the third faction that I failed to mention in the last segment, the Beastmen. Yes, indeed, we're here with a team game. This one was on Heir of Carthage's channel, but I used this concept in this game, and it does give me an opportunity to talk about these three factions, all of which can do it. The reason I didn't mention the Beastmen in the last segment is they have basically a better version of this spell, which is Mantle of Garroch right here. Gives a melee attack component as well, and a significant one at that, at the cost of 30 armor for a similar Winds of Magic cost. So I would generally say that Lord Wild is better anyway, just offers you other utility that's better than Lore of Shadows, and yeah, you also get a better version of that spell from there. As for Warriors of Chaos, the Wombo combo here is with Kolek Sun Eater's Star Crusher, again, that 50% armor-piercing damage, giving a massive damage spike. We've got Ungor Spears, Cygor Arowar with the Hell Cannon here, providing some nice artillery. Shadow Sorcerer up in the air, Exalted Hero, tons of Razorgore Herd. The Norscan force here is Wulfric the Wanderer, Double Mammoth. He's got a Death Sorcerer and some supporting infantry, Marauder Horsemen out to the flanks. And our opponent's heirs, I believe, got Rokkar's forces here, Reptile King leading Nakai, and we've got Regina with her High Elves. We did have the campaign units enabled, obviously, in a custom battle, and we've got the Hand of the Shadow Crown here, a nice little kind of hybrid hero, a bunch more elf archer heroes, Alariel, Star Dragon, a whole bunch of Saurus infantry. We've got a Dread Saurian here, Krokars with another Carnosaur. We've also got Croak, just all of the 2v2 stuff, right? And we're going to be playing forward a little bit with the Marauders and various other units here. You can see I'm doing some skirmishing, and I'm also playing forward with my monsters a bit. Exalted Hero Manticore going to drop down, get a nice charge, start to hopefully terrify away some of these units, and again, just charge in with the Marauder Horsemen as well. Just quick hit and runs, try and break up this advance as much as we can. We really don't want them getting back and getting to this artillery. Likewise, if I can get Kolek matched up on one of these big monsters, like this Dread Saurian, that's going to be very advantageous. But we can potentially get exposed a little bit here. Likewise, our opponents, for now, just kind of keeping this flank sort of static, but that does allow Norska to kind of come up, get a little bit of a big concave here. But staying with things, I believe I'm going to pop off all the stuff on Kolek. Yep, he's up to 907 total weapon strength. Granted, he is in a rough situation, but watch him just whomp Nakai here super hard. Pretty tough stuff for Nakai. Oh man, another big hit, and Nakai doesn't have the biggest health pool, so he's actually probably a better target objectively here than the Dread Saurian, because of course if I eliminate him, that's a massive leadership penalty. And yeah, poor Nakai. And a few hits do go on the Dread Saurian as well. Granted, the Dread Saurian just wrecked my Exalted Hero. He got that Primal Roar from Nakai and just got a huge spike there. So didn't really come out on top either side, in my opinion, but this engagement's going very well for us. Wicked, Beastmen teammate here brought a ton of these Chaos Spawn, and they're making a heavy push here with these Mammoths. The Mammoths actually get a nice engagement, and granted, this is a lot of RNG fighting these big monsters against each other. Harmonic Convergence there on that Saurus Scarvet, but we've got our artillery supporting, so we should be able to clear out the allied infantry support here, you know, kind of the order infantry support, if you will. Meanwhile, over on the other side, Marauder's just kind of pushing up and around. I'm trying to figure out what exactly I want to do with Kolek. I can't really fight directly in this monster mash here. You can see these Razorgore herd, they're at least going to hold things up with the Unbreakable Chaos Spawn and keep these monsters at the very least tied down. My Exalted Hero probably going to get nommed by a Star Dragon, but we're going to try and escape if we can. Artillery still raining in fire, but right here we're getting a really nice situation with all of these spawn. You can see how they kind of come in and surround Krokar. A similar situation with the Scarvet here with these Razorgore herds who are now enraged, kind of surrounding him, and all of these high mass units are blocking them, holding them up against these Mammoths, and also distracting their attack animations, which is just a beautiful situation for us. Meanwhile, Star Dragon being distracted by my Exalted Hero, I figure let's take advantage of this situation. See if we can't come back here and snipe out some of these elf characters. So Alariel's going to feel the wrath of the Sorcerer Manticore. Gets in here, gets a good hit. Likewise, the Hand of the Shadow Crown getting beat down there by Kolek. A beautiful Hell Cannon shot cinematically comes in and blows up those Lothern Sea Guard. There's a lot of targets for us to go after, though, and I need to be very careful of that Star Dragon. I say that Star Dragon, it's actually Alistair the White Lion here on that Star Dragon. But unfortunately, Krokar is still, again, just bogged up in all of these high mass units, getting withered, getting, chipped away over time by these three Mammoths. He's been able to do a ton of damage to Wulfric, but this wasn't quite enough. Meanwhile, over here, kind of a wash in terms of the engagement. It looks like we're eventually able to get the better of things with the Norscan infantry getting the support of the beasts once again. So things are looking pretty good for us. I mean, granted, Kolek currently getting killed by Alistair. I call down that Strike of Lightning, and it actually does get a direct hit on Alistair. And I guess Alistair has Heroic Killing Blow, right? So that does mean that in at least a custom game with friends, in like a hosted multiplayer lobby, you can actually do this combo with Alistair himself, rather than a Prince on the Star Dragon, but it's going to be enough to finish off Kolek there. That being said, I believe I also got Alariel. I'm not really sure. I don't see her. I think I actually finished her off with the Sorcerer Manticore at some point. Maybe she's still kicking around somewhere. But with the healing being gone, that's going to be a big factor in this late game for a lot of these big single entities. And my Chosen, likewise as well, are fighting very effectively here. It looks like we're going to get a bit of pizza delivery, doing some good damage to them. Lord Croak providing that DPS throughout time. But not going to be enough. Another beautiful charge right on that Hand of the Shadow Crown. Just a quick hit and run. I don't want to stay and fight that Star Dragon or the Red Saurian, obviously. Just a lot of resources kind of being concentrated here, whereas you can see the Chaos Horde just spread all across the field, kind of able to isolate, get good engagements in various positions here. And this sort of Triari line, if you will, of Chosen plus the Mirror Guard, basically Demi-Chosen. Looks like they're going to get a little bit of a buff here. They get Aspect of the Dread Knight from the Norscan player there to cause a bit of terror to our opponents. Yeah, looks like we've got a Pharaoh Manticore also dropping down there. Wicked going with mass summons here, both Manticores and Cygors. And the assault has been just way too much for the Forces of Order to handle. The Heaven's Mage getting caught there. A nice breath attack, though, from Alistair. And this Hand of the Shadow Crown, whoops, still fighting. Hopefully you guys didn't actually hear me smack my mic there. But, yeah. Another pizza delivery. Hits a bit of those Mirror Guard. Doesn't get the best contact, but the Dread Saurian now getting kind of wore down by the massive monsters. Wulfric gets rear charged by Alistair. But will it be enough? The Order forces quickly approaching critical army losses, and I believe I've actually been using Enfeebling Foe, yeah, on the Shredder there, and also, I didn't catch it, but I want to say I gave Occam's Mindrazor to Wulfric himself at one point, which of course is just fantastic. But rear charge there from the Shadow Sorcerer finishes off Alistair's leadership. At this point, yeah, he actually just straight up goes down there. And the Shredder of Lustria is the main thing kind of holding the balance. Croak as well, of course. Pretty big hold on the balance of power, but should be able to finish things off. The Shadow Sorcerer here, you know he's getting promoted to a Sorcerer Lord after this one. They come down, finish off the Shadow Crown here. Oh yeah, beautiful stuff. And yeah, he just straight up finished him off with that charge. I like that Hand of the Shadow Crown character, though. It'd be kind of cool if they implemented him for Elithnar's faction only. So like, you would have to take Elithnar's faction specifically to get him in multiplayer, but it would be kind of nice to have him as an option, in my opinion. I just like having options for everyone, though. And Croak is the only option for the Lizardmen to win at this point, as army losses have kicked in, and yeah, there's just no way for the poor undead Slann, who I totally didn't forget about at all in my Slann cast along with the Life Slann. Yeah, he's going to kick the can here, and that's it. Well, that's it for my Shadow cast, this Occam's Mindrazor multicast here. Hopefully you all have enjoyed it, and I have to say, you know, there is certainly an argument to be made, especially for Occam's Mindrazor and some of the other really high-tier weapon strength buffs, for them being worth it now. Absolutely. The 50% and above ones, I would say for sure. The 25% ones, depending on the cost, especially for something like, Flaming Sword of Roan, which I didn't really talk about here. Doesn't give armor-piercing damage, but still gives Kindle Flame plus, you know, regular non-armor-piercing damage. That can be good, mostly just for the Kindle Flame, but again, Occam's Mindrazor, Mantle of Garok, like any of those type of abilities that give that 50% plus weapon and armor-piercing damage, especially if you can stack them together, will be very potent. And you can get some ludicrous weapon strength numbers on some various units. For Warriors of Chaos, I guess we can kind of finish up with them here. There are a few different things you can do. I think Kolek is probably the most straightforward. But this is kind of an old combo. This is not necessarily super new, but Archaon with Cascading Fire Cloak giving 25%. Slayer of Kings is now 75% total as well, right? So you can get him up super high. And keeping in mind that if you also target Flaming Sword of Ruin, then you get an additional 30% non-AP, which is okay. But again, really this is about the straight damage spike of Kindle Flame. And Kindle Flame is a pure damage percentage increase, right? So, I mean, you will get a ton of value from that in and of itself. So it does require, you know, Archaon, which, I mean, granted, there's a lot of upside actually to using Archaon right now, I would say. But a kit like this with Cascading Fire Cloak, Flaming Sword of Ruin, you might want to take Burning Head as well. But specifically comboing these two with Slayer of Kings makes Archaon into an absolute powerhouse. I'd be curious to see that total numbers on this. In fact, I might just jump in here real quick and have a look. Briefly, you can do this also a bit with the Chaos Lord up on a dragon. Again, with Lore of Fire, I think it's arguably a little bit more effective than with Lore of Shadows, simply because the Chaos Dragon does fire damage. But I'm just curious here, if we go ahead and kind of math things out on Archaon, if you bust all of his nut at the same time, if you will. And Wulfric, again, with all of his kind of armor, maybe we'll just actually have these two fight. How about that? Oh, Wulfric, why are you over there? Wulfric, what are you doing? Okay, fine. The AI sometimes. Okay, so let's come in and let's pop all the goodies. Okay, so we now have... I don't think the AI is actually going to use its stuff. Okay, so let's just quickly pause here. We're up to 968, what, total? With all of these buffs happening at the same time. And keep in mind that we're getting a straight-up percentage damage increase from Kindle Flame on that, at least while that's active for that short amount of time, right? So, because of that little percentage increase, I think this might be, you know, just as high as some of those Star Dragons. Like the Star Dragon and the Losi and everything, but yeah, it's pretty effective, as you can see here. Wulfric's getting absolutely destroyed. Unfortunately, he didn't actually use all of his buffs and debuffs like he was supposed to in a combo, so we can't actually look at that today versus Archaon. Apologize about that. Should have been a little bit prepared and actually had a test with a real human. But that's just kind of how it goes, so hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.